I think it toughened me up as well because, I had even more trials and tribulations that I could say. Definitely gave me a thicker skin and taught me how to be more assertive, ready for coming into wrestling. I had this idea for this Nina Samuels show to come about because I'd always said before, oh, it's the Nina Samuels show. WWE started really getting on board with it, and then they started officially filming it. I did find it a really difficult time when I was there, just because I wanted to give so much more. Your branding, knowing who you are, knowing what to bring to the table, and knowing how to insert that into any opportunity is a really important thing, because then you're giving yourself more control, because you're handing over the tools to the people that do have the control. You're saying, this is what to do with me. This is how you're going to get the best out of me.
Yeah. I love my city, yes, about me, and I bet they know me. I love my city, yes, about me, and I bet they know me. I love my city, yes, about me, and I bet they know me. Yeah.
Welcome everybody to LiMPiN AiNT, the only show of its type where professional wrestling, or depending on which side of the fence you land on, sports entertainment's best, brightest, most interesting individuals come to share and discuss the obstacles, the struggles, the trauma, the heartbreak, the headache, the adversities they've had to face, endure, and overcome on their way to pro wrestling success and glory. All in the hopes that you, the audience, will hear it and be inspired, be motivated, connect. Maybe you'll hear your own story and your own struggles through one of your favorite or least favorite or unknown, and now you're learning superstars of the squared circle. Or maybe you'll just hear the story and go, thank God that's not my life, which is probably what you think when you look at me, your handy-captivating host with the most contrasting colors in all of podcasting. I mean, I have all blues here. You know why? Because I can't see anything else. That's right. On top of everything else, Timmy Baltimore is colorblind. So, at the end of the day, you know what? I think that's proof positive that if there is a God, he or she has a sick sense of humor. Once again, as I said just a moment ago, my name is Timmy Baltimore. Don't forget to click subscribe, like, comment below, interact with our social media platforms. That's why we checked IDs at the door, not just so you can hop on the short bus, but also because I know where you live now. Unfortunately, we won't be able to drive the short bus this week because our guest comes to us from across the pond. That's right, the UK. And she was a standout, in fact, from NXT UK, the now defunct effort by World Wrestling Entertainment to start a developmental territory over in the booming wrestling scene. And I mean booming, big things over there in the UK. Now, you may have heard of GUNTHER, of course, who the former Walter came from over there, Tyler Bate, the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne, a lot of incredible talent over there. ALBA FYRE, and our guest today is no different. She did become a host, or became known more for her personality, which she has in spades. If you don't know this young lady, you're going to fall in love with her after this interview. She's just got such an incredible personality and is so talented, so versatile. Just has range for days. And while she is such an incredible character, she does have her heart in between those ropes, bell to bell, because she's one hell of a wrestler. And as she explains to us, the scene over there in the UK, especially amongst the female performers, there's a chip on their shoulder. And they have something to prove, because a lot of people looked at NXT UK as the red-headed stepchild of the WWE, and even though it's no longer there, they still feel like they, being the UK talent, have something to prove. And Our guest is going to be coming to the States for the very first time to defend her Progress Women's Championship and her Pro Wrestling Eve Championship in Las Vegas for WrestleMania 41 weekend. So, tickety boo, please join me in welcoming the dynamic Nina Samuels. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to LiMPiN AiNT Easy. My name is Timmy Baltimore, joining us via satellite all the way from the UK. Well, originally from the UK. I don't know if you're there right now. Miss Nina Samuels. Nina, thank you so much. Are you currently in the UK?
I am, yes. I am here in London, England, in my new home. I just got a new home. So she lives in a house now. Went from an apartment to a house. So yeah, exciting adulting stuff. So this is actually my first interview that I've recorded from the house.
Oh, I'm honored. Wow. So this is going to be cool. Okay, so no more flat. Do I have that right? No more flat.
Flat, yes, flat.
You got the house.
Flat is gone.
The flat is gone. That's
I
so
have a
cool.
garden. I have an outside space. In lockdown, this would have been lovely.
You went, yeah, which can't turn back the hands of time. Do you have a yard? Do you have a dog? Do you have pets?
No dog. I'm sure my husband would love otherwise, but maybe one day down the line. But yeah, just a cute little garden, manageable. Because before it didn't even have a balcony before. So yeah, enjoying the new space.
Wonderful. And are you from London originally?
I'm from near enough. So I'm originally from Hampshire, same county as Jamie Hayter. So it's a good county. And it's just on the outskirts of London. So I'd say I grew up about hour and a half from London, but I moved here 18 years ago, pretty much. So I've spent half my life basically in London. So it feels as much home.
I have family in Norwich. But I say that, like I know anything about it. You know?
So I say Norwich because I actually spent 9 months living in Norfolk, the county that Norwich is in. I spent 9 months there on a dance contract. And whenever I was describing to anyone else where I lived, I would say that it was the top of the butt of the UK. So if we're like looking at the map of the UK and there's the hump at the back, I was like, yeah, I live right on the top of the hump.
The top of of the cakes of the UK.
Yes.
So
exactly.
you mentioned dance. I'm in doing my due diligence for the show and what we do. It's not just a career retrospective, but it kind of we like to dive into the journey because when you're big star bound, it's a long hard road. And nobody gets where they're going unscathed. And you are so versatile, diverse, like immensely talented at so many different things. And like that's not showbiz BS, like that's the truth. Mm-hmm. How did wrestling become the medium for you where you go, I can bring all these talents possibly together?
So I always say the short answer for how I transition from dancing to wrestling is I call it a quarter life crisis. But since we've got some time, I can actually divulge a bit more. Please. So I grew up with two older brothers and like 10 and 12 years older, so quite a big gap. And they did a lot of my babysitting. So a lot of my babysitting when I was younger was my older brothers looking after me, and they were both huge wrestling fans.
I see where this is going.
Yes. So when I was younger, I literally pretty much was watching wrestling since birth. Like my earliest wrestling memory is technically from before I was even born, was SummerSlam '88. And I remember the Ultimate Warrior coming out all guns blazing, finally ending Honky Tonk Man's reign. And that's just my earliest memory because, of course, when we were younger, there isn't as much content as there is now. We literally just had the 4 pay-per-views a year. And we got them on VHS. So you watch the same things over and over again. So I couldn't even tell you how many times I will have watched that. But yeah, that's my earliest memory. So I literally grew up on wrestling. And obviously I was very small and easy to lift. So for my brothers, they could feel big and strong trying out all their moves on the sofas.
Perfect size for a power bomb.
So yeah, that was my entry into it. But to me, like, it was all so real to me when I was younger, and just the prospect of it being something that you just did not compute. Like, it was something that I watched that happens over there in America. And then as I got older, I started getting into reading lots of wrestling autobiographies. I think there was a point in time where I pretty much read everything that had come out. I'm not that up to date now, but I really got into reading all the wrestlers' autobiographies and reading their stories. And that started having something in the back of my head that, oh, okay, this does kind of happen in the UK, but I was still so dance focused, dancing, singing, acting. That was my absolute world, what I'd wanted to do since I was a kid. And then just steadily, I think I've been doing it for about 5 years or so. And I encountered lots of hurdles along the way. It is not an easy business at all. And I say that as someone who is currently in the wrestling business. The performing arts world is crazy. It's very, very full on. And I think it got to a point where it just broke me, really. I was never a super slim, straight up and down type of dancer, which at the time was what everyone wanted. I wasn't the most flexible, but I could perform the hell out of anything. So that was appropriate for some jobs, not for other jobs, because there were some where, you know, you have to fit into the exact costume that they have there. And, you know, I had examples where I would be encouraged, like, oh, you don't fit in that the way we want you to. So I would be encouraged to diet to fit into that costume, or, oh, we really wanted you to wear this costume, but you don't fit in it now. So we'll put you in this temporarily, but we really want you to work your way to get into this costume. And, like, you know, opening in front of other people, like, oh, we're going to have to sew an extra panel into this, etc., etc. And, you know, there's a lot of it. You need to fit into a lineup, not just aesthetically, but in terms of the way you perform. And as I say, I like to put in my extra bit of stank on everything, and I had to kind of strip that back. And I just got to a point where I was like fed up of trying to put myself into this mold. Like, I did not touch a weight because I was worried that my body was naturally quite muscular. Obviously, I know a lot more about fitness now, and I know that touching a weight would absolutely have done me wonders.
Right.
But, you know, it was just that sort of mentality at the time. And then I remember one time, I think I was very comfortable in terms of I could get constant work at one level, and I wanted to push to a level above. And after a period, I think I had like 14 auditions in 11 days. And I was feeling I was so drained. And I was watching an episode of either Raw or SmackDown at the time, because I was living with my brother. So, you know, it was back on in the house where I was living. And I think it was around the time seeing like the Bellas, Eva Marie, etc. And I looked and I was like, they are so glamorous, but they all have their own individual way about them. They're like strong but sexy. They look powerful. And I just, in my head, I was like, well, I'm going to do that. And I was like, that's it. That's going to be my next job. Very naively at the time. But there was a director that I'd worked with on like a small independent film. And I knew that he was a wrestling fan, and he had been working on a film to do with wrestling. So he had made lots of contacts. So I messaged him and I was just asking for some advice. And he had a school where the wrestlers were going to be training for his film. And he said, oh, I can get you in there if you want. Because, you know, it didn't occur to me that you can just go on Google a wrestling school. And it just did not occur to me for some reason.
Me either. Yeah.
Into this school. And the school was like a 6-hour round trip, which, again, I've read so many wrestling autobiographies. That seemed so normal to me. I was like, yeah, well, that's what I'm going to do. And so I went, I think, like 5 times to this school before a new singing job came in, and I couldn't make that trip. And then I was talking to a friend saying how much I missed it. She was like, oh, why don't you try London School of Lucha Libre? I looked it up. It was a 15-minute bus ride from where I was living. 15-minute bus ride. And yeah, when I went for my first session, it did kind of click straight away, because it was like all of these things that I'd done building up to my life, it just felt like this perfect amalgamation. Like, I'd grown up watching wrestling, so I had a good understanding of it. I knew, because of dancing is actually, you watch something, you know how to imitate it and put it onto your body. So that helped as well. And on top of that, when I was dancing, I always had a fascination with partner work and with like dance lifts. So whenever we'd do like, you know, shows in our college, I would always choreograph those sorts of numbers. And I had a fascination for how the mechanics of it and how two bodies worked together. And again, I got to wrestling, I was like, oh my God, this is what this is. And what I loved most about it was, I was like, wow, in wrestling, what makes you different is what makes you better. Whereas I felt like it had been ingrained in me while I was dancing, because of the type of dancing that I was doing, that what made you different needs stripping back. Now, obviously, there are push elements of dancing, and now it is a lot more diverse. There are parts of dancing now where you are embracing your individuality, but that was not my experience. And all of a sudden with wrestling, I was like, oh, like this is my unique spin I put on something, and oh, I actually need to dial that up. And even, I can't tell you, the fact that I could choose what I wore was amazing for me, because like, you know, I just get handed a costume and you have to wear it. And it would be something that absolutely would not flatter me at all. And again, it's like you're in the mindset of, well, I have to make myself fit this. Whereas it's like, I can choose what color I want to wear. I can choose what cut and what fit I want to wear. I can choose, you know, what character I'm going to play. Like, I loved the fact that, like I say, anything that makes you different, you dial it up rather than dial it down. And you can just completely create your own channel in wrestling. And it was just like, I finally thought, I was like, oh my gosh, this is where I'm meant to be. And I wish I got into it sooner, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if I would have been ready for it had I not had all that previous experience. And also I'm glad I'd matured a bit, because I see like some wrestlers now who are really young, but really mature, have their shit together. That was absolutely not me when I was in my early 20s. So I definitely needed that time to sort of mature and be ready for it. And also I think women weren't taken as seriously back then. So maybe that would have put me off before I even had a chance to get going, you know.
Kind of a blessing in how that all worked out, because it's almost like it was preparing you for what was to come, correct?
Yeah, 100%. I think it toughened me up as well, because, you know, I had even more trials and tribulations that I could say when it came to the dance world. And, you know, I had some tough experiences I went through, but it like definitely made me stronger. And I think having certain interactions with some less than great people in that world definitely gave me a thicker skin and taught me how to be more assertive, ready for coming into wrestling. So, you know, it prepared me to be able to know my worth, stand my ground from an earlier stage, and just know how to, you know, conduct myself in certain professional situations based on experience that I'd had before. Because professional wrestling doesn't always come with professionalism, but, you know, as much as possible.
Today, we actually have share a mutual colleague and friend in referee Chris Sharp, who's in NXT, and he told me that you were one of those individuals who was secure, self-aware, came into the business with the confidence, as opposed to kind of being like a babe in the woods and doe-eyed. Your eyes were open to that, and I imagine that served you very well. What kind of dance did you do, if you don't mind me asking?
So generally I was part of like variety shows. So they'd be in residencies in certain places. So we would have, like, for example, like a disco show, a Blues Brothers show, a musical theatre show, like an Irish show. What else do we have? We had like a pop type show, a Glee themed show. So like from different places, there'd be different themed shows. So like, I guess jazz was sort of the main type of dance, but I was like classically trained in ballet as well. So, you know, I did all the point tippy toes stuff. I did tap dancing. So, you know, a bit of everything, I would say.
Something that drives me crazy is when people in wrestling say, well, it's not ballet. I go, do you understand how hard ballet is?
Right?
Like,
Oh
does
my
that
God.
does that get you?
It does. Yeah. Because you know what though? I would absolutely love to see some of like the toughest of tough wrestlers in a ballet class. I'd love to send them personally to my old ballet teacher and see how they do. Because it's so hard. It's so hard. Like even now, so like a job that I do outside of wrestling, I teach Reformer Pilates, and Reformer Pilates is so humbling. And I always love it. Like when I get like a big beefy guy come in and then they say afterwards how hard it is, because it's just a different type of exercise. Like, and it's like I say a similar reformer as you have with ballet, like you're using muscles you don't even realize that you have. Like my feet were fatter when I was a ballet dancer because you don't think about the muscles in your feet. So like I wouldn't fill out my old ballet shoes now because my gains in my feet will have gone down. Like, and it's just something that you don't think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, ballet is so hard. And like I've had a fair share of injuries in wrestling, but like I cracked a rib dancing.
Oh my God.
Like genuinely cracked a rib dancing, sprained ankle on crutches dancing. And then after I sprained my ankle, got back from the hospital at 3 a.m. from spraining it in the show. The next morning, I was leading a rehearsal, having to teach new people the routine for this show. So I'm sat on a chair, like in front of them, like to take the weight off my feet, teaching this routine. And then 5 days later, we opened a brand new show, and it was a disco show, and I had to do it. Luckily, because it was a disco show, we had our like knee-high silver boots, so I could hide a crazy amount of strapping on my ankle underneath. If we'd had to wear our sort of regular like ballroom type shoes, I would have been in more trouble. But yeah, underneath this like silver knee-high boot with the chunky heel, there was so much strapping involved. And luckily, because I was dance captain on the show, I had a rein to tweak choreography where needed. So if I couldn't jump and land on a particular foot, I'm like, we're going to do a cute mirror thing this way. So I'll go this way, you go that way, and we'll make a pretty pattern. And I didn't have to land on my bad foot. I also did abuse that power sometimes to take the splits out of certain routines as well. I was not a good split. So I was like, yeah, we're not going to do that today. We're going to do this instead.
You got to take the perks where you can get them, right?
You really do. And you just hope that the director doesn't come and view that show. And I'm like,
I you're so dynamic. Like the amount of preparation that you had coming in to the industry, what was the most surprising thing that you encountered that maybe you didn't expect to when you walked into the wrestling industry from dancing?
How do I word this? It was a lot more rustic than I expected. My only exposure to wrestling was the glitz and glam WWE. And then so the first school, the one that I went to for like the 5 sessions, my 6-hour round trip, I feel like it was in some kind of warehouse that also doubled up like storing window stuff, like for installing windows. And then the next place that ended up becoming my home, where I really got my start and really learned to wrestle, was in a railway arch down the back of an alley, and doubled up as like doing certain club nights and things as well. So do you know what I mean? You could be training one day and then like you just see on the side, oh, there's a little bit of broken glass from something that happened last night, or oh yeah, there's. And one thing that I remember was we looked up training, and hung in the rafters of the ceiling was a condom hanging from the rafter, but not from what you'd think, because there was a cabaret performer that did certain grotesque things, like, the nail up the nose. And one gimmick that she did was she could pull the condom and go through, and then she'd flick it. So it wasn't a used condom in that sense. Okay. It just got stuck, and someone clearly missed it because it just got stuck up in the ceiling. So yeah, I would say that was probably my biggest surprise. I wasn't expecting it to be like rustic is such a polite word of saying
that really is. That's very nice of you to say. Yeah.
Also, sometimes we do training without a ring. So, it depended on the schedule of the venue and what else needed to be in there. So sometimes we just have the mats on the floor. and would be doing training there, which, you know, there's plenty of training that you could do there. You know, unfortunately, sometimes we would take bumps on that, and I feel like that did probably shorten my career a little bit. I help teach out of school now, and we're like, okay, we won't bump on the mats. We'll do that in the ring, or put down a crash mat or something. But you know, definitely, again, toughened me up in a different way, and I think it gave me a big appreciation. Like, the ring was really appreciated, which if I turned up every time and it was there, I maybe wouldn't have had that same appreciation. And I think you don't get as much training like that now, so I think sometimes people take that for granted. So it definitely made me appreciate it a lot more, and probably made bumping in the ring feel less painful because I'd felt it on the floor.
Yeah.
So, you know, toughen me up in that sense as well.
The I think that's a really wonderful way to go too. And a guy like Rip Rogers out of OVW was, you know, he is the guru of the basics. As you got to have those fundamentals.
Yeah.
Something's going to go sideways always, and you got to have the fundamentals to lean on and get on track. The scene when you started training in the UK, what was it like? Because I know that the UK scene, I know WWE, from what I know, the little bit I know, is, you know, WWE sort of was the Shangri-La and seemed to be where everybody wanted to go. But at some point, the indies lit up in the UK. Can you talk a little bit about your era when you started?
Yeah, so when I started, I didn't really have much knowledge of the indies at all. So I was very, very, very naive coming in. Like, even, for example, so I share a surname with the lovely Shah Samuels, who I was on NXT UK with. And when I first came in, he was already like a legend of the UK scene. But I didn't know who he was because I wasn't out and about watching the UK scene. And I had so many different name changes. I think in my first 10 matches, I went through 9 different names. Finally settled on Nina Samuels. And then someone was like, oh, well, there's this guy, Shah Samuels. I was like, I can't change my name again. And then I found out like what a big deal Shah Samuels was. And I was like, I'm too far in now. I can't change it again. And then, you know, we make jokes about it now. Every time we see each other, we're like, you're right, Samuels. And, you know, we like recorded some stuff on NXT UK together where, you know, it was us figuring out if we were related or not. But yeah, I really didn't know much about it. But there was still great stuff building. Like, I think like Progress was still coming up at that time. Revolution Pro Wrestling, you know, they were booking like Kurt Angle on their shows and stuff. So
yeah,
they were doing really big things. But I feel lucky because I feel like I got to be part of a real big boom in British professional wrestling. Like, still such an amazing moment was when Progress ran Wembley Arena. I forget exactly what year it was in. Would have been around probably 2018, 2019. And I was on that show. So I wasn't wrestling, but I was part of Ginny's faction at the time, House of Couture, and getting to walk out and be part of that. And it wasn't an import heavy show. Like, we had like Matt Riddle on at the time, who was still independent, but was doing appearances in Progress. But your main event was, well, back then as they were known, Walter versus Tyler Bate, who were independent wrestling stars. You know, they're now very successful in WWE. You know, Walter is Gunther and is the world heavyweight champion. But at the time, that was a story where, because often when independent shows fill out that really big venue, it's because you brought in a really big import who's selling the tickets. But it felt great that the tickets were being sold on the homegrown talent and the homegrown stories. And that felt like such a huge achievement at the time. And, you know, we were regularly doing shows at Alexandra Palace, which is such an iconic,
beautiful,
an iconic, gorgeous venue. And it was very cool being a part of that. And I feel lucky with when I came into wrestling, because when I came in was when women were starting to get recognition.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's why I said earlier, like, maybe if I wish I'd started earlier so I had more years in me, but I don't know if I would have stayed in as long, because I might have come in and been like, oh wow, this really sucks for women. Whereas by the time I came in, it wasn't great yet, but there was definitely a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of where women were going and how much more seriously women were being taken. And it felt very, very cool being part of being the UK version of that, because, you know, it was happening in WWE with the Divas Evolution and all of that. But it felt very cool being at the epicenter of that for the UK women's scene. And I've always been such a big proponent of trying to make the women's scene as good as it possibly can. And I think what's great, not to shit on the men, but
Well, please do. We deserve it.
what I do find is great about our women's scene, and this is really how I feel about how it is now, is we all see ourselves, at least from my experience, as a team. Like, because I think with men, there's a lot more variance with you're at the top of the card, you're the middle of the card, you're the bottom of the card, you're on the top promotion, you're on the bottom promotion. But with women, I think we sort of take it in turns. There's much less of us. We're a smaller community. We work with each other a lot. And you will still have some people that are seeing you as the women's match. So it's like we all have this passion within ourselves. It's like there's just a constant chip on our shoulder, but we're all working together. And I think that's why our scene has become so good, and why we're at such an elite level here, is because we know that we need to work together. We know, okay, sometimes now's my time to step back and let you shine, but I know it's going to come around. And then when we work the next time, you know, things are going to come swings and roundabouts. So there's less ego in that perspective. And I think that's what makes, you know, great results. And I think that's why our women's division in the UK in general is being spoken about so highly. Like, we've got so many talented women, like, and I feel so blessed that, like, pretty much anywhere that I turn up, it's a dream day at the office. I'm spoiled for choice with who I'm going to be working with. Like, on the most recent Progress show, wrestled Millie McKenzie. Not only is she a great friend of mine, but she is incredible. And we've wrestled so many times. We wrestled a bunch in NXT UK for like such a short time. So it's nice that now we're out, we're like, and we've both grown so much. We've both got so much better. So it was really cool on the latest Progress show to be able to, you know, have that moment with her, and show everyone what we could do. And then, you know, now coming up with, you know, Vegas, like, so excited. Like, my first time wrestling in the States. And I always thought my first time wrestling in the States was going to be with WWE, because that was booked in 2020. I was booked to come to the States for 3.5 weeks, train at the PC, be part of, you know, NXT UK at WrestleMania Access. And then the night before my morning flight, the whole trip was cancelled. So it's been a long time coming for me to finally wrestle in the UK. And, you know, I've been wrestling coming up 11 years, and it's just happening. But it feels so worth the wait, because I'm walking into Vegas. I've got 2 matches. Both of them, I'm coming in as champion, defending my titles. And they are 2 of the most prestigious championships that you can hold in the UK. Pro Wrestling Eve, top all-women's promotion in Europe and in most of the world, like, world-renowned company, and Progress, who, again, Progress has been one of the top indie names, again, worldwide for years. So although, again, I would have loved for it to have happened sooner, I'm like, wow, that feels cool that my debut in the US is coming in right at the top. I'm walking out right at the top as well, because I'm not planning on coming back any lighter.
Yeah, the champ is here, and that bag, that carry-on is going to stay the same weight as it arrived. The man, you brought up so many interesting things. I really want to touch on the bond and the common goal amongst the women's wrestling locker room.
Yeah.
When I came up, I was fortunate enough, the first person to believe in me and take me around different shows was Mickie James. So one of my closest friends in the world.
Yeah.
And I saw what she her and a Beth Phoenix, who was in OVW at the time, and you know what they had to go through to fight for a few minutes, to just push the stone up the hill just a little bit more, and to know that all of that paid off, and also what you guys have done in the UK, what you ladies have done in the UK, the whole industry is reaping the benefits. Do you feel though that, because I mean, if you look at the talent and the matches and just tearing down the house, it's almost unfair. Do you feel that the UK female talent pool is underestimated, unappreciated, or kind of doesn't get the recognition it deserves, or are you pleased with where it is at the moment?
So I think what it is like right now, there's no way to be a contracted wrestler in the UK, really. You've got some people like Danny Luna, who's contracted to TNA, who lives in the UK, but she's going back out and forth. But in terms of like, there isn't a UK company that can contract you right now. So I think that is in some ways why the talent is so good, because, in general in America, people that get to a certain level, then they're snapped up straight away. There are so many places that you can work and be a full-time contracted wrestler in the States. And in the UK, we don't have that. So it's like, I don't know if I call it a ceiling, but in some ways it's great because it's, we're all being contained and producing all these amazing matches. And like I say, it's a blessing, because every time I come to work, I'm like, I'm spoiled for choice with who I'm going to get to work with. And it's just great because we all, like, there's that chip in that shoulder, but it's just fueled into such a positive way. And I think, we see, like, you mentioned Mickey, Beth, like, the women that I all work with, we're all fans of wrestling. Like, we've all grown up and seen the work that went in, seen the work that they've all put in before us. And it's like, you've got that pressure on your shoulder that you can't let it slip. Like, because we can't go backwards. We can only go forwards now. And it's just very cool that we get to keep having these amazing moments. Like, I've had Super Strong Star 16 is like the biggest weekend in a Progress calendar. And it's a male dominated tournament because it's an all male 16-person tournament. But yeah, the last 2 years, one of the matches from each weekend that's been talked about the most has been a female match, which I was involved in both, just saying. But my match that I had 2 years ago, for example, was with Alexis Falcon. It was a Clock Strikes Midnight match. It was the end of like an 8-month feud. And it was the first sort of match of its kind, really, where the stipulation would change at random intervals. And because it was the first of its kind, I think people didn't really know what to expect. But we kind of liked that, because we were like, we almost don't want people to have that much of an expectation, because we want them to just be like so shocked in awe of what they've seen, like, oh my God, what just happened? And I'm so happy with what we did. And I still to this day get people regularly coming up to me at shows talking about that match to me. And I'm like, that's nearly 2 years on, and people are still talking about it. And the fact that we managed to connect with people that much, that spurs me on to keep trying to create this magic, trying to tell, not just create good matches, but try and create great stories. So I think if we'd done that match just on its own, it would have been good. But the reason it was so good was because it was a payoff to all the story work that had gone in. So people were invested in it before we'd even started. And the Progress have such a great like video and creative team as well. So they're building all the hype packages, making us look like megastars, making everyone super invested in it. And it's just great motivation to keep going. And right now, initially, I was going off in one story direction with Kanji, and then that we sort of had a pin in that bit, going to get the title off Rio, but now we're really delving deep into that. And I know Kanji's still in the background, and I know we're going to get back to it, but it's nice that what seemed like it could have been a random detour off with the stuff with Rio, we're actually now really, making something of it. And, the hope is that Rio's going to come out even stronger than she already was off the back of it. I say this out of character, obviously in character.
Sure.
I hope she's going to come out, broken to pieces, shattered.
Of course.
but yeah,
Yeah.
she's someone who's incredible, and she's really rising up now. She's finally getting the recognition for just how incredible she is, which will make it all the more sweeter when I, knock her off and, keep the title for myself, of course.
Nice feather in the cap. Yet another.
Yes.
The scene in the UK with WWE UK, when obviously Triple H, Paul Levesque, and Shawn Michaels come over, and Mr. William Regal to sort of begin to plant the roots there at that time. I know it was kind of a mixed bag of nuts because everybody got a big opportunity, but also it kind of completely changed the ecosystem.
Yes.
Do you remember how first of all, how did you feel getting the call to be a part of it, to be a part of WWE? But then, if you don't mind, after that, moving on to say kind of what you saw as the fallout, positive and negative.
So my journey into NXT UK wasn't smooth at all. I got a call to be a part of the first show, which was at Royal Albert Hall, less than a week before it happened. And I didn't know what I would be doing. And I ended up not doing anything. I just was shown in the front row. And then we all came out for a group thing at the end. And because I hadn't been part of the long conversations, I was someone that they decided fairly last minute that they wanted to include. I didn't know it was going to be NXT UK or anything like that. I just thought they were doing another WWE UK tournament.
Oh.
So I found out as it came on the screen and as it was announced to everyone was the exact moment I found out. And I was like, well, they've announced this and I'm standing in the group and he's telling us to do a walk around the ring. So maybe I'm in this now. Because, again, it was a lot of people had contracts and I didn't. I was just like, they were like, oh yeah, come along to this. And then I would keep getting invited to more things, still without a contract. So I'd just be, on a pay per appearance type deal.
Yep.
And then steadily as we went, there weren't very many of us that weren't on contract. But then steadily each of those kept getting asked to do to go on a contract. And I was like, I'm still not. But I was still being treated as part of the roster. Because often if you come in as extra talent, your travel is separate. Your dressing room can be separate. But I was included with the roster and everything, all the same travel, everything.
Very unique position to be in.
Very unique position, yeah. So I was still juggling a day job, whereas everyone else at that point, well, not everyone, but the majority had given up their day jobs and they were spending all of their daytimes going traveling and doing all this training, putting all this extra time. And I really wanted to put in that extra work, but I had to hold down a job. Yeah. And I remember I sent an email to our talent relations rep and I was just like, do you know what? I'm just going to throw something at the wall and see what happens. I was like, look, I'm in a rubbish situation right here. I was like, I really want to give more than I can give right now, but I'm having to hold down a job. I can't train as much as these people, but I want to give you my best. I was just like, what are you looking from me?
You go, girl. Yeah.
Me, like, what do you want me to do to get a contract? Because that's what I want, because I want to be able to give more to you than what I can currently give. And I got a reply back like, I appreciate your position. I'll speak to Triple H. And then I got an email, I think probably a couple of weeks later, offering me a contract. And I was at my desk. I had to stay late because I had something to finish. So luckily I was the only one in my desk because I literally screamed as soon as I read it. I would not have been able to contain it very well otherwise. At the time, I was keeping this whole thing secret from my job because my job, technically, I wasn't allowed to do any other work.
You didn't know, too. You couldn't rock the boat either way, right?
No. So, there was one time, the day of the Albert Hall show, so I was working in events at the time. I had a client who we were hosting an event for 1 mile from the Royal Albert Hall. and I had to get someone to cover it for me because I said that something came up with my family. So I was 1 mile away at the Royal Albert Hall while my friend was covering my event. And that's why I wasn't posting anything really about it early on, because I knew that people at work followed me on social media. So again, it was a really like tough position. But when I eventually came in and was involved, it was an amazing feeling, because I wanted to be a full-time professional wrestler, and NXT UK gave me the opportunity to do that. And I completely understood that the thoughts were mixed on it, because it was new territory, really. Like, we were still working the indies, but we were on these contracts, and then new rules came in. So, promoters were worried about using NXT UK people in case the rules changed as we went, and they built to a big story, and then all of a sudden they couldn't do it. But not just because I benefited from it, but I do wholeheartedly think it was a great thing for the scene in the end. Like, a lot of your top stars on the independent scene now are stars that rose up and filled the gaps that we left when we weren't there, and flourished in that role. And I'm not saying they wouldn't have got there if we didn't get to NXT UK, not at all, but it was a chance for them to step up and flourish into that role. And then I think when we came back onto the scene, again, people have to step their game up, because they have to hold those spots now. They have to hold those spots. And also, from my perspective, I learned so much being in NXT UK. And when I came back to the independents, I really wanted to carry that forward, because there were so many things that I learned that I feel it made me so much better, that I wish I knew. And they seemed so simple once I knew them, but I didn't have a chance to know them. So it was really important for me to pass that on, to make the scene that I came up in better again, because I wouldn't have got the opportunity in WWE if I wasn't part of a flourishing scene and had an opportunity to have that spotlight. So I really wanted to carry that forward. And now I coach at a training school as well, so again, I'm wanting to carry it forward again and give people a chance to not slip up on mistakes that I slip up on, like in the past. So I say it's easy for me to say it was a great thing because I was part of it and I benefited from it, but I really do think that it was. I think COVID was a much worse thing for the scene than NXT UK. And people talk about rebuilding the scene, but I think COVID made it need a much bigger rebuild than NXT UK did, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel that there was a sense of in NXT UK that we're kind of literally on an island over here, and we have something to prove? What was the morale like? Was it? Was everybody working together? Was it contentious?
So I would definitely say there was a big sense of everyone working together. Everyone really wanted it to be a success, but naturally, so like I was saying before, with us women all working together in independent scenes, like we know, okay, well, I'm going to be the one making you look really good here, and I know it's going to swing around and happen elsewhere. In NXT UK, it doesn't quite work like that. Again, we're in a similar position to the men are. Like, you do want to get to the top of the card, and if you're not at the top of the card, you do have things of like, right, well, what do I need to do? And I need to try and do this, and everyone has to look out for himself a certain amount more there, because the higher your stature is in the company, the more opportunities that you're going to get, the more money you're going to get. Maybe you're going to get a chance to go to America. But I do still think there was a great bond with everyone in NXT UK. And it's sort of that thing that there's only so many of us that are going to understand that situation that we were in. And even though, a ton of us had certain frustrations when we were being there, like I always wanted to wrestle more. Like I've made no secrets about that. I was generally in very short matches, and then towards the end shot myself in the foot by making an entertaining online show, which meant that I didn't get to do as many matches. So it's not that we weren't without our frustrations, but I still think it made me such a better wrestler from being there and having the training experience as well. And even if I feel like some of the things I was learning in the performance center that I couldn't apply that much in NXT UK just with time constraints, I'm now able to take all that knowledge that I learned and apply it now. So it's still something that again, I wouldn't change it for the world. And you know, again, it's brought me more recognition than it had before. Like, I still, even though we're 2.5 years away from NXT UK finishing, I still go around the world and I have people that know me from NXT UK, and even loads of the students that I train now that say NXT UK was, you know, what was getting them through lockdown, because it was, you know, a nice 1 hour show that was, you know, still producing great stuff. So, you know, I think it was divisive for sure, but I think there were so many positives from it.
You talk about the sort of the blessing and the curse of, I went and got over with this, screwed up and went and got over with this show, the Nina Samuels show, because it was so damn entertaining. And that's a gift, to be able to just naturally, you can't teach it. It's just, if you could bottle up and sell it, you know, you'd be a millionaire. How did that, the Nina Samuels sort of the I guess you would say cheeky, is cheeky the right word, character of sorts, and come about? And, you know, I know sometimes our gifts become our curse. At what point did you start to realize, like, I'm great at this, but I want to do more?
Well, it was first talked about actually probably before even COVID, because there was one taping where our backstage interviewer wasn't going to be there. And someone just floated the idea of, oh, would you want to do that? And I was like, well, we can maybe build a story to it. So maybe I build up some animosity with the backstage interviewer to the point where I decide that I'm going to take his job, and then we make something of it. It ended up not happening, I think, again, because it was around about, you know, 2020 sort of time. But I think that's where the seed sort of first was planted. Then there was talk through lockdown about it being an actual talk show segment, which then didn't come about because one of the other wrestlers ended up doing a talk show segment. So on a 1 hour weekly show, there is not space for two people to have a talk show. Not successfully anyway. So, and then I can't remember exactly how it came up again, but I think I had a frustration again with not really being used. There were some things out of my control where I was essentially meant to go into a story with Piper Niven, and then she sort of fairly last minute got called up, not even to NXT, straight to main roster. So it meant that taping, I was left without anything to do because I had been slotted in with this person and everyone else had been occupied with other things. So that was me off for a taping. And then I think it's very much a thing of sometimes when you're off, then it's like people get used to you being off. And then it was a case of trying to chip my way back in. And I had this idea for this Nina Samuels show to come about, because I'd always said before, oh, it's the Nina Samuels show. But I had an idea for it to come about. There was a specific promo for it to come about, which they couldn't find time for on TV. So I just filmed it and put it on social media, because I had an idea for basically Johnny Saint to be shutting me down and for him to snap at me and sort of with me trying to get an opportunity and say, this is not the Nina Samuels show. And then for me to have the light bulb moment of, oh, but it is. Right. And then it wasn't going to make it into TV. So I just filmed myself on the phone to him and put it out. So at least I had a journey in. And then there was talk that it was going to be something that would go on every week on TV. We filmed one, which did go on TV. Got to the next taping, and I think out of the 6 episodes, it was written to be in 2 of them. So I thought, well, I suppose maybe on the episodes where I'm not featured, I'll just film one myself and put it on social media, so it kind of keeps it going. And that's how it started, really. They just got more over than I could have hoped. Like, I filmed on the first day of TV, filmed one that needed to go out on the episode that night. And like, pretty much within a few hours, it was up to 12,000 views. I was like, oh, okay, there's something here. And as soon as I had the idea to do more, at least because people had straight away seen how that one that I'd filmed that day, how well it had done, people were a lot more receptive to do it because they understood it. So I was grateful I did that first one with Sam Gradwell, who is an amazing character, like so up for doing anything to do with extra content. So he was so willing and facilitating, which is why it went so well. So I think if I hadn't have had him be such a great scene partner, maybe it wouldn't have blown into what it was. But it was a great thing because it was something, you know, I could just do. Even if I didn't have anything, it was like, well, great, I can do this. And it was a chance for other people as well to show a side of their character that maybe they wanted to show, but wasn't getting through the net for TV stuff. And then it just became something that we filmed. So initially it was a pain because I had such a bad quality camera. Every time I had to go borrow someone else's phone, find someone to film it for me. I had to make a note of whose phone, which one was on. And I had to get the footage, post it myself.
Oh, my Lord.
WWE started really getting on board with it, and then they started officially filming it and doing the post themselves, which was way less stressful. So they did that. So I had the pro of that, but I didn't have the con of, because sometimes the con of that is, you know, certain micromanagement, which I didn't have. I had to check with them. So I just send a list of like, okay, episode 1, I do a pre-match with this person. Episode 2, a post-match with this person, and they would just approve that. But then there was pretty much creative control outside of that. So yeah, I learned so much from doing that, and it got really over. But I could sense fairly early on that it was taking over a bit, and I wasn't getting as much TV stuff. And so many times I pitched exit strategies for it because I said to them, I was like, I want to finish out this storyline like before it gets tired. And they were like, no, it's still going really well. But I really wanted to get ahead of it and find a way out before it got tired. So I did keep pitching exit storylines and have it be a way to shift my character a bit. I basically wanted to, you know, piss off the wrong person and get cancelled was what I wanted. And then I wanted the character story arc of what happens when the Nina Samuel show gets cancelled. But we didn't get there. But we didn't get there for a flattering reason because they just really liked it. But yeah, so, you know, it was a blessing and a curse because that did mean my TV time was sometimes limited because they said, oh, well, you're already really over because you're doing that. So you already get loads of time doing that. And I had one time where I wasn't on TV for 8 weeks, but I had people come up to me like, God, you're all over NXT at the minute, aren't you? Because it's just the perception of it, because some people do follow stuff from social media rather than actually watching the show. So their perception was that I was all over the show, even though I hadn't actually been on for quite a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, I still don't regret it. Like, you know, I would have loved to have more in-ring big moments on the show, but, you know, it was something that made me stand out and, you know, in a way maybe helped me reach out to more people than would have done for the actual show. And, you know, I got to film with Randy Orton. That was dead cool. That was very cool. Very, very cool. And that was an interesting experience as well, because, you know, the nature of the speed of main roster stuff, I turned up that day not having a clue who I was going to be interviewing, and just essentially had to wait in the talent viewing area. And every now and again, a social media person would come up to me and tell me if someone was up for it. We'd go, had to quickly figure something out, quick one take, done, because they have to go off and do something else. So that was a very cool experience in that sense. So yeah, absolutely. You know, I don't regret it. As I say, there are things I wish would have gone differently, but, you know, it's something that, again, like I said about that progress match that people still talk to me about, people still come up and talk to me about the Nina Samuel show, and, you know, how much they enjoyed it. So yeah, it was a very cool thing. I retired it when I came back to the independents, because at that point I felt like I'd done so much with it, and I wanted to focus on being an in-ring wrestler, and I really wanted to channel all my energy into that. Not to say it will never come back, but yeah, I've definitely enjoyed taking the focus to the in-ring stuff now.
Because there's only one rule in this, and it's get over. It's get over.
Yeah.
You get over. You know, you think maybe you're going to make the rules when you get over, but you got to get over like over to make the rules. Yeah, but exactly. I find it interesting, and I was wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit, and I hope this isn't too inside baseball, because it may be directed at people within the industry, especially young females in the industry, but actually young people, across the board, people across the board. How did you go about, you know, they call it politicking, like it's a bad word. It's self-advocacy, I think. Yeah. how did you go about maneuvering to get more for yourself, or to be featured as much as you want, or to say, okay, I'm not on the show, so I'm going to do this on my own social media? What was there fear? Was there trepidation? Or were you laser focused and knew what you had to do? And what advice would you give to people who are feeling like they need to advocate for themselves?
So at that point, I think I had honestly just reached a point of such frustration at the time. Like, I was so frustrated. Like, I think that year, 2021, I was a fully contracted wrestler. I had 5 matches. And I think the longest of any of them will have been 5 minutes. 2 of those 5 were filmed in one day. Another 2 of them were filmed one day apart. So, I mean, already in that 5, that's like, I feel like I wrestled 3 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was just so much frustration from my behalf. Like, I did find it a really difficult time when I was there, just because I wanted to give so much more. Like, I was putting in so much work, and I wanted to do a lot more than I was doing, and I wanted to feel seen. And at the time, I didn't feel seen. And as I say, it literally just came from that point of desperation. I was like, well, I need to try something. Like, you know what I mean? You only regret the shots that you don't take, right? And to me, it's just about, it just has to come from a place of respect. You know, like, if I was going to be going and posting my own stuff, I wasn't going to be doing it against the interest of the company, because then you're not going to do yourself any favors, you know? So if you need to advocate for yourself, you just have to try and do it in the most professional way. And same with, you know, politicking and stuff. You have to think, who else is this going to benefit other than myself? Because if you're just going in there pitching something that is only going to benefit you, then you're coming across as a selfish person. So that's why, you know, when I would come up with certain pitches, I'm trying to think, right, this is something and someone else is going to benefit from this as well. This is a great way to get this out of this person. And so that's the thing with this Nina Samuel show stuff, you know, there was going to be the benefit of it's getting exposure for other wrestlers as well. And it's providing extra content for the show. So, you know, again, it's just got to be a case of, you have to think how it's going to benefit someone else, not just you. Because when you're only doing stuff that's benefiting yourself, that's when you come across as a bad, shitty politicker, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say it is. And, you know, just to be respectful, so you got to think about, to me, it needs to benefit 3 people. It needs to benefit yourself, another person, and the company.
Good
and
business.
if it's not going to do that, then it's not worth pitching. And if there's something that you really think that it can't tick those 3 boxes, you need to think how to make it tick the box that it's not ticking before you open your mouth and say it. Because, you know, it's a performance industry. We are all looking out for ourselves. We do all want that spotlight, otherwise we wouldn't be in it. But you've got to think bigger picture, you know, because everyone in a company, someone that runs a company, wants to know how this is benefiting the company. You know, so it's the same in any job. Same in any job, you know, looking at that bigger picture is how they're going to hear it, because each person, when they're hearing your idea, is thinking how it benefits them.
Yeah.
So you have to preempt that. You have to preempt that and already include it, because then not only are you giving someone what they want, but also you're showing that you're considering them and you're not just thinking about yourself. And then you're the sort of person that someone wants to work with. And I think the more you show that you've clearly thought out what you're suggesting, the more people are going to be receptive to your ideas, because they know that you're clear-headed and you're thinking about them, rather than just, you know, reeling out whatever comes to your head and throwing tantrums and whatever. Like, you know, if you can make sure that you've thought of those things, then that makes you someone that's worth having around and worth working with.
Because nobody gets over or does it on their own. It's just impossible.
No.
When you, or rather, when WWE closed the doors to WWE and NXT UK, can you talk a little bit about how that impacted you personally, and what sort of emotional obstacles maybe you faced in that time period.
So it was a wild time. So I was actually at an independent show at the time when everything shut down, which was because that was when we'd started to be allowed to do independent stuff again. So it was all fully approved. We knew we were having a meeting. So there were actually 3 of us from NXT UK that were at that show. So we all joined in the meeting together on Zoom. We quickly went from sorting together the show stuff, found a room. We were in the call. Initially, the call was just telling us about NXT Europe. So initially, it was a very exciting, happy call. And I went straight away. I was tweeting, yes, NXT Europe needs more Nina, super excited. Maybe that was very naive of me at the time, but I thought that call was a very positive thing.
Well, let me ask you real quick. I'm sorry. Was there any talk? Was there rumors of it maybe having the plug pulled?
No.
No. Okay. Sorry.
Every now and again, people might speculate and things like that, but there was never really anything concrete never anything tangible that we'd heard that things were closing down. Never anything tangible. So yeah, we're all tweeting, super buzzing, excited. Then all of a sudden the group chats start going off and people are putting a screenshot with, oh, this person's just posted they're not with WWE anymore. What? And then, do you know what I mean? All the different group chats. We got all sorts of different group chats with different people. And then people were checking then you'd hear about another person. Then someone checked their talent relations app and they couldn't log in. Oh, no. Someone else checked it and they could log in. And someone that I'd heard couldn't log in just got their phone call, and I went and checked mine and I couldn't log in. So I pretty much knew it was coming there. And then I actually got a missed call because I wasn't at my phone at the time. Called back and pretty much knew what it was going to be. It was maybe a 20-second conversation. I mean, I could have asked more, but I was like, she's got to do this call a lot of times today. I'm not gonna, do you know what I mean? I'm not gonna make a song dance.
You're sweet for that.
So yeah, and I cried a lot. But I had to go out and do a match a couple of hours later. So, which I don't know if that's a record for quickest match following a release, but that was it was a weird out of body experience because I was so emotionally drained. That match is still on YouTube, and it's one of the few matches that exist where I don't have false eyelashes on because I could not keep any makeup on my face because it was just draining. But I actually loved that match, and that match went great because, I talked about the chip on your shoulder earlier. That's the biggest gigantic chunk on my shoulder that could ever have existed. And I had a friend that was at that show because she happened to be in town anyway. So, seeing her out there, but I'd cried so much in those couple of hours leading up to that match. And I was like, I've just got to go out and do it. And then, sobbed immediately afterwards because I was just so emotionally drained. And like I say, I can only refer to it as an out of body experience because it was just such a surreal feeling. But I think it was very beneficial for me having a match so soon after that I loved. I got to wrestle for more than 5 minutes, which was great. Because straight away I've had that feeling of, well, I'm going to be okay because now I get to do this. And I'd always wanted to go to Japan, but that was always, I'd had potential offers years before, but I still had a day job. So that was making things difficult. And then there were restrictions when we were in NXT UK. So that was one of my first thoughts. Well, I was like, well, I can go to Japan now and I can do that. And then I think it was only about 1 week later, I got a message from Meiko Satomura, who I'd become very good friends with in NXT UK, with an offer for me to go out. So, I definitely had a rough few days processing it, but things just started going well for me very quickly. Won a championship 5 days later, again, in a show that I was already due to do anyway. And I feel lucky because I think not everyone had the same experience that I did. There were a lot of people that struggled integrating back into the independent scene. But I think for me, because I always stayed very close to the independents, even when I was in WWE and I couldn't go, I'd go along, help out, and still be very much in that family. I felt embraced by people when I came back. So I know not everyone shared that experience, but for me, I felt embraced on the return And yeah, that was a way of, you know, very quickly sort of thinking, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get to do a lot of really, really cool stuff now. I'm going to make the most of it. And I'm going to use all this stuff that I've learned and set the world alight and, you know, have loads and loads of fun, which I feel like I've done. I feel like it's been a pretty successful, you know, 2.5 years, equaled a world record with most titles held simultaneously. Like
Get out.
Equaled Ultimo Dragon's record, yeah.
Like
Most
that
ever,
famous picture of him with the you know the one I'm talking about with all the titles?
yeah. So I've got mine with 10 titles as well. I've done a few, actually, did a few photo shoots for my 10 titles. So I actually became Nina 10 belts twice. I lost one, then I won a different one. So I went from 10 to 9.
Oh my Lord.
So yeah, it's felt very cool. And, you know, in that, you know, getting the Progress Championship finally after being with Progress for so long. And, you know, still being Pro Wrestling Eve champion. I'm on 400 and something days, maybe creeping up to 500 soon. So, you know, long reign with the Eve Championship as well, which I intend on keeping as well. So, yeah, I'm delighted with how everything's with how everything's gone.
Did you when you kind of hit the ground running and made the most of it and brought that that great attitude to the future of what the future held for you? Can you, I know this is a very loaded question, but is there any way you can like pinpoint the overarching or the biggest lesson that you learned into your time with WWE?
Oh, I think probably the biggest, as well as like, you know, in-ring stuff that I learned, the biggest takeaway that I got in my time there, like the main difference in me from the start to the end, was branding and character. I did not have much of either of those when I first started, which is what I realized very early on was a problem and what I needed to work on. And I feel like by the time I came out, I was one of the stronger ones in that area. And that's something I've tried to continue from there, because I think your brand is about so many different things. It's not just how you present yourself, it's not just your catchphrases, it's even down to the in-ring presentation, you know, thinking what in-ring content is fitting my brand, rather than just, oh, I like this move, I'm going to do this move, you know, thinking what do people want to see from the Nina Samuel show? Like how am I giving people their money's worth when they come to see me, and how can I sustain that? So how can I have what they're coming to see me for be something that I can reliably do all the time and carry through to everything? So whether I'm doing just a match, whether I'm just doing a promo, whether I'm going to be on commentary, you know, whatever, like how can I make sure that I give people that experience every time they come? So, you know, my brand and my character is intact, like my unique selling point. I always say to people, I'm like, you want to make yourself hard to replace. So like if you all of a sudden can't be available for something, you would want it to be really hard for them to think, right, who's going to fit that spot? Because then that's how you're setting yourself apart, you know, and that's how you make yourself valuable. Like, oh, well, we need Nina to fill that spot.
Nobody else can do it. Only Nina can be Nina.
They can try,
but it won't be. Yeah, it'll be like the Timu. And they do that. They've tried. They've. I'm not saying with you in particular, but like that's a common practice and it's business. But that's a really important asset and currency to have.
Yeah,
is knowing how to be a star and be irreplaceable. What with the state of women's wrestling and the progress it's made, where do you want to see it go that it currently is not?
For me, okay, if I think of one tangible, specific thing, I have not been part of an all-female progress show. So that's something that I would love to be a part of. They have happened in the past, not when I've been a part of, and not something that's happened for a long time. I think the last time that one did happen, it was on like a Monday night or something, like not very well promoted, like felt a bit of an afterthought. And I think you could say the same, WWE did one women's pay-per-view. And I remember when I saw the presentation of it, I was like, why has it got a house show presentation? Like they didn't have the same guardrails that they normally have and things like that. And I was like, it just sends that wrong message. So I would love to see that.
Was over in Saudi Arabia. That's the other part.
Yeah. So that's what I would love to see. I think I would look for WWE. I would love to see them have another evolution. I've heard rumors of it. Whether it's going to happen, I don't know. But I would love to see that, and I would love to see it happen on a grand scale. Like, you've got women there that are actual megastars now, like actual megastars. Like, you've even got Rhea's like over 5 million followers. Like, she's not just wrestling famous; she's like famous, an actual huge star. Like, so talented. Women like Bianca, who are incredible. Charlotte, obviously, again, is like a massive, massive star. I think now is a time with how good the women are. Now is a time when they could really pull the trigger on that again, I think. And then from a UK perspective, like I would love to see that in like a big company like Progress or Revolution Pro, where women get a big spotlight. Like it's been talked about, what I said in Progress before, the Super Strong Style 16, it's an all-male tournament. It's a long-standing tradition for them, a way to get, and they always bring in big imports, big names for that. Something like that for the women as well is what I would love, because, women, like Pro Wrestling Eve years ago, we did like a show in York Hall, like over 1,000 people for that, and now Eve are regularly selling 500 tickets for a show regularly.
Awesome.
Not just to wrestling fans, to people outside of wrestling fans. Like there's a market for that. There is an appetite for it. And I would love to see it get that spotlight, because especially now, like the scene that we have at the minute is so incredible. Like I said, like we're spoiled for choice with how many amazing women that we have. And I would love to see that highlighted and us not just be, a women's match on the card, which, even though for the most part broken out of it, there is still that element of it there. People will still come away from it and say like, oh yeah, the women's match was good. And it's like, they won't just say the names of the wrestlers. Like people will still sometimes say, oh yeah, and there's a women's match. Like, so I would love to have it where, we get that big spotlight where we're not just talking about it being women, because everyone on the show is a woman. So we're talking about those individuals and people having that individual recognition as well.
Yeah. See that. What would you say the overarching struggle that you have faced, Nina, in your career in not just wrestling but showbiz that you have repeatedly come up against and had to face, endure, and overcome? What would you say that is, and what advice would you give to anyone who is experiencing something similar?
It's a really difficult one. I suppose if I could sum it up with like all performing stuff, is a feeling of not being in control, because unless you're deciding to run a show, you're not in control. And it's sometimes a hard position to be in. I think especially in wrestling, because wrestling feels very personal, because you've got the benefits that you're creating your own character and creating your own channel, but that makes it feel a lot more real to you. And it sometimes can be hard to distinguish and feel like something is against you when it's not. It's just for your character. So I think the feeling of a lack of control with how you're portrayed and things like that, I'd say is something that's a regular problem for anyone that's in any kind of performing job. So, I think, again, it comes back to a mix of what I've said of like your branding, knowing who you are, knowing what to bring to the table, and knowing how to insert that into any opportunity is a really important thing, because then you're giving yourself more control because you're handing over the tools to the people that do have the control. You're saying, this is what to do with me. This is how you're going to get the best out of me. And this is what I can do for you. And then it feels like you've got more control because there are things coming from your suggestion.
Yeah. The idea, it's almost like it collaborating, but also making it seem like part of their idea. But
yeah,
nobody, you know how. What I think, once you get to a certain experience level and confidence level, and start to master your craft, nobody knows you like you. Nobody knows
exactly
what's best for you like you do. Speaking of what's good for you, this trip to the US, the first one.
So excited. So excited.
That's huge. Can you talk a little bit about what exactly is coming up? I know we touched on it a little bit, and what that means to you as a performer in the UK, finally coming to the States to wrestle, not only just on a weekend, but Las Vegas, WrestleMania weekend, the center of the wrestling universe.
Yeah, it's such a cool week because there are so many eyes on wrestling and a chance for people to see you that don't know you before. Like, we had a similar thing like when AEW have come to town, and we have all these other fans from around the world that are coming seeing us for the first time, and getting to know us and getting to know what our scene is like and how good it is. So I'm excited now that we get to take that to, again, another weekend where you've got wrestling fans that are traveling from around the world to come and watch that. And it just feels so special. And I love that the first one I'm going to be doing is Progress. So that's going to be on, I say 17th of April. It's a midnight show. So does that technically mean it's the 18th? But
yeah,
Thursday going through to Friday, the midnight show. So yeah, it's a late one, but I know we've got so many passionate wrestling fans that are in town for that weekend. So, and it's going to be such an incredible show. I'd say you get to see me versus Rhea, but also we've got Vert Vixen in there. Vert Vixen from the States, part of Defy. So having her in there, you got probably three of the strongest women in wrestling. It's going to be a battle of the powerhouses. I'm going to let them tear each other apart, and I'm going to walk out with my nice title. So, yeah, I'm so excited for that. It's in a gorgeous venue as well at the Palms Resort. Like, I've seen the pictures of it. It looks incredible. So I'm excited to see how it's all going to look, and hopefully, we're going to get that nice grand feel for what is a huge show for us at Progress, and a chance to continue it being an internationally recognized brand. And then the next morning, pray for me with my lack of sleep.
Right.
Is Podomania. So Podomania, I'm defending my Pro Wrestling Eve championship. So 2 title defenses in like less than 24 hours. Craziness. Actually, no, in less than 12 hours. 12 hours. That is wild. And I'm wrestling Izzy Moreno, known to a lot of people as the Bailey superfan. So I tweeted about it when I first found out. I was like, she is a part of one of my favorite matches ever. And her tears made that match a big part of what it was. So it's only right that I try and make her cry again, to make those tears be such a big part of this match. I'll be able to see. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So excited for that. Obviously, Izzy's super popular with all the fans, and I actually recently saw, when she was over in London, my friend Lyra Valkyria, who I'm so excited to see when I'm out there. So excited to see all the amazing things she's doing. But she said she's done some training with Izzy recently, and said that she's really, really good, and said that how amazing she was. So, hey, obviously a blessing. I was happy to wrestle her when I thought she was just a little kid. So I guess it makes it a bit harder finding out that she's actually really good at wrestling. But right. more exciting for me as well. So I think that's going to be a really, really fun dynamic, completely different vibe from our powerhouse triple threat the night before. Completely different vibe. So, you know, I'm so excited for that. And then I'm doing WrestleCon on the Sunday. So it's always great meeting the fans. I love doing these signings. It's great because, you know, I get to properly spend time chatting to the fans, and it's always really fun, like hearing different people's experiences of where they've known me from. Like some have known me from a YouTube show, some have known me from NXT UK, some have known me from being on the judging panel for a fantasy booking thing with Wrestle Talk. You know, it's great hearing everyone's different experiences of how they enjoy wrestling and, you know, what chapter of my career they know me from. So I'm really excited to meet all the fans for that as well.
So that's going to be WrestleMania weekend. That is the first show is the April 18th or
April
midnight.
17th, midnight through to 18th. Yeah.
Broken midnight.
They need to announce it as like 11:59, right? To take the confusion away. But no, that would mean it's starting early, and we know wrestling shows don't do that. So
you're right. So and that is Progress, where you'll be defending
yes,
the title there, and then the next it's the morning show.
The next morning is Podmania, where I'm defending the Eve Championship against Izzy.
And then WrestleCon.
That'll be on the Friday morning, and then the Saturday, I don't know, maybe I'll try and sleep or something, or do something else, and then Sunday I'll be doing WrestleCon.
Very cool. What Nina Samuels, when it's all said and done, if it's ever said and done, what would be the greatest compliment that you could receive from your peers, from your mentors, from the fans?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I feel like it's different from different people, like from my peers and the people that I work with. I would love to say that I feel like that they feel like the scene has been better for my involvement, because that's really what I've always tried to do. You know, tried to help out as much as I can backstage, help out with passing on things I've learned, try and help out by, you know, being as great to work with as I possibly can be, making everyone look as great as they can do, like not just match wise, but story wise. You know, I love to think about how I can bring out a certain something in someone else character wise as well. And I don't know, fan wise, I love them just say that, you know, that they love me, that they've loved watching my work, that they've been invested in stuff that I'm doing. You know, I just want to leave a positive wrestling experience on everyone that I work with, everyone that watches me.
That's so cool. You've had a such an interesting run, and it feels like you're really kind of, you know, just getting started, and the best is yet to come still. I'm so honored to have been able to learn about you, get to know you, and that you took the time to come on LiMPiN AiNT Easy and really tell us, because you know, you've been through a lot, but you have such a great attitude. You're so lovely, and I really not only hope that the WrestleMania weekend goes just splendidly, but I hope that you moving forward continue to not only make a impact and become as big a star as you possibly can, but I know you're going to do the ultimate karmic thing to do, and that is leave it better than you found it. So
thank you so much for having me on as well. I've really enjoyed our chat.
I did too. Do you have you want to plug your socials real quick?
Yes, so I am Nina Samuels 123 on X and on Instagram. I've got link trees on there as well, where you can find links to my merchandise store, to my Patreon. I have a lot of fun on Patreon, you know, doing where you get to see a bit of the non-wrestling character and, you know, see show day vlogs, things like that. So I love, you know, interacting with my fans on that. So yeah, all those links are on both my socials.
So this is Nina 10 belts, or you 9 belts now officially?
I'm less than that now. I think, oh God, I might be down to 6. I think
But
I'm
it's
down
kind
to
of like
6 now.
6? It's like being
Yeah.
over here, like being president, like you're always Mr. President, right? Or Mrs. President.
I will always have that Nina 10 belts. Hey, I did it twice. So I will always have that. But yeah, technically now I'm on 6.
Well, I thank you so much for coming on and telling your story here on LiMPiN AiNT Easy. Follow Nina Samuels on her socials, and you're going to want to check her out WrestleMania weekend at Progress and is it Podomania? I'm sorry.
Podomania, yes.
Podomania, and that is April 18th at evening, midnight.
17th and 18th. 17th Progress, 18th Podomania.
17th Progress, and we'll put that up, and the 18th is Podomania. Nina, thank you so much, and I really hope to see you soon.
You too. Thank you so much. The fact that I could choose what I wore was amazing for me, because I just get handed a costume and you have to wear it. And it would be something that absolutely would not flatter me at all. And again, it's like you're in the mindset, well, I have to make myself fit this. Whereas it's like, I can choose what color I want to wear. I can choose what cut and what fit I want to wear. I can choose, what character I'm going to play. I love